So today's video, we're going to do something a little off the beaten path and also give you some updates about the channel moving into 2021. The first thing is, as we move into the new year, we're going to be making some pivots and shifts in the channel, and I'm going to move more in the direction of things that are extremely important to me, along with astrology. So in 2021, one of the things that will happen is you're going to see a lot more content interwoven into the videos that are about the goddess, being a daughter of the goddess, which we all are, and also mature beauty, because one of the things that happens as we get older, because we live in a very patriarchal society since forever, is that we've been led to believe this lie that we lose our beauty because we've lost the blush of youth, and that's not true at all. The fact of the matter is, there is beauty at every age. The difference is, in a patriarchal society, that beauty is defined by what sexually arouses men. That's not beauty. A rose is a beautiful flower. It does not arouse sexual feelings. Babies are beautiful. Hopefully, in a normal person, they don't arouse sexual feelings. And the same thing for maturity. Mature women, mature men, mature things, antiques, right? These things also are beautiful in their context, and they're not necessarily something that arouses, well, in normal people, sexual feelings. So beauty is a very broad spectrum thing, and one of the things that we lose sight of as women is that we are not losing our beauty because we've lost our youth. The only thing that happens is youth creates a veneer that makes the most unattractive people more attractive because they're young, right? We'll have a long talk about that in the future. So anyway, one of the things that I want to do is I want to include, these are conversations between you and me as one mature woman to another. And by the way, I'm over 50. I'm not going to tell you how much. I'm over 50, and there are differences in how my body performs and how my body looks. My skin is changing, my hair, everything about my body is changing. And I don't feel like I am less beautiful for it. I'm less young, which is a good thing, but I'm not less beautiful. So one of the things we're going to talk about is being a mature woman and being a beautiful mature woman, being a daughter of the goddess who is beautiful in all her incarnations. Okay, so we'll be doing that interwoven into our talks about the predictions for the month and all this sort of good stuff. So if you're a woman over the age of 9 and these things are important to you, stick around. It should be an interesting and really empowering year ahead, and I want this to be an inspiring and empowering channel for all of us, especially those of us who are moving into the quote-unquote crone age of womanhood. All right, so let's go on the video, and this particular video is what we call a Horary chart. Now, mind you, the caveat here is that I am not a well-versed, experienced practitioner of Horary, so I may be missing a few things. But with my limited knowledge, and also too, it's very difficult to read a chart correctly or objectively when you are part of the question, right? This is why psychics can never do their own readings. So I will do my best with this chart. We're learning as we go along. And the question for the chart was, should I continue the channel? So there you go. Let's see what the charts have to say. Okay, so the chart that we're using and the question that we asked is, should I continue my YouTube channel? This question was asked on December 12th, 2020 in Wilmington, Delaware at 6:22 p.m. Now, according to Horary rules, the first thing we look at is the condition of the ascendant. So the ascendant should not be less than 3 degrees rising. So 0 to 3 degrees on the ascendant means you can't read the chart because it's a premature question, or it's too soon to tell. And it cannot be more than 27 degrees. So 27, 28, 29 degrees indicates that the situation is too far gone for any inquiries in the matter to amount to anything. It's too late. It's over. Or possibly that the question's already been asked, and this is just a moot point. So we have 15 degrees Cancer rising on the chart, so we've got a good, strong ascendant. The second thing that they look at is the moon. Is the moon void of course? Does it make any aspects? So the moon is coming out of a conjunction with Venus here in Scorpio, and it's at 27 to 58 degrees Scorpio. So technically it's at the end of the sign, which definitely describes the question, because I'm, reaching the end of my patience with the performance of my channel. But at that degree, at such a late degree of the sign, does it still make any applying aspects that it's moving towards? So it's moving away from Venus. We can't use that conjunction. However, it is still, before it changes signs, applying to a sextile with Jupiter and Saturn. So again, we still have a good radical chart. Now, the other thing that they say is that you should have hour agreement. And it's not showing here, but the hour of the day for this chart is the moon. And we have Cancer rising, which is ruled by the moon. So we do have an hour agreement. So far, everything appears to be that this is a good, readable chart. Now, the next thing is Saturn. Where is Saturn? So understand that when Horary is normally done, because the querent is typically not also the astrologer. The querent, or the person asking the question, is the first house. The astrologer becomes the seventh, right? The person receiving the question. With Saturn in the seventh, this would indicate that the astrologer is not in a good position to get a clear answer from this chart for a variety of reasons. However, I am the querent, and I am also the astrologer. So the first house exclusively represents me on both matters. So we're not worried about that because it doesn't apply to me. I'm querent and astrologer in this case. So far, or at least this is my understanding of it, so far we've got a radical chart, which means that it's a good, strong chart we can use. Now, let's see if we can get an answer. So the first thing before you even open up your chart, you should determine the house that rules the question. And the reason is we all tend to suffer from a bit of bias perception or confirmation bias. So what will happen is if you haven't decided ahead of time which house rules the question specifically, and that's how you're going to find your answer, when you open the chart, you're going to do what everybody does, and you're going to look for the house that offers the aspects that looks the most like what you want the answer to be. We all do this. Now, because it's a YouTube channel, and YouTube and the internet and communications and information sharing and exchange, all of these things are third house things, I attributed the question to the third house. So we're going to go straight to the third house to see if we can find our answer. So the third house, you can't see it here, but the third house is actually 29 degrees and I think it's like 58 minutes of Leo. So the fixed star Regalis sits on that third house. Now there's two ways to interpret this. So with a 29th degree on the house ruling the question, it would show something coming to its close or its natural ending. It can also show somebody who is literally at the end of their rope. And to be honest, I'm kind of hitting my limit with the performance of the channel compared to what I think it should be doing. By comparison with other people and their content, compared to the amount of time and effort and energy it takes me to do these channels. So I'm kind of at the end of my natural progression here if the channel doesn't make some substantial improvement, because the reality is one of two things is happening. Either I'm just not cut out for this and I'm horrible at sharing astrology or being an infotainer or whatever it is that you need to be successful on YouTube with astrology. Either I'm not that person, or there's something technically missing. There's some little glitch with an algorithm. There's some other external thing that can be corrected that I'm just not seeing. But right now, we don't know. We just know that we're underperforming given the amount of effort and time and quality of content that's being offered. you know, compared to other people that are doing different things than I am, for sure, and doing much better. Now, we will talk about that in a moment. All right, so Leo, 29 Leo is on that third house cusp. So the ruler of the question and the third house now becomes the sun. Now, here's what's interesting. I put not the trans-Neptunians. Are these trans-Neptunians? These are asteroids. Outer planets. Some of these trans-Neptunians in here. Asteroids. I looked for the asteroid named Jenny. And with asteroids, you have to go with what is phonetically as close as possible to the word that you're looking for. And in this case, this is not how I spell my name, but that is still Jenny. So we put Jenny in, and lo and behold, look at that. Jenny, the asteroid, plugs in right there with the sun, which rules the third house of the YouTube channel. How interesting was that? I thought that was kind of interesting, so I put it in there. I wouldn't use the asteroids for the Horary reading. I just thought that it was interesting that it popped up. So it's kind of like a confirmation, right? It's just one more element of corroboration there. Okay, so we know that Leo's on the third house cusp. The sun rules that third house. Now the sun is in the sixth house, which again is kind of a dying, weakened house. It's not, the sun is not strong there at all. And clearly this is what we're talking about because the channel is underperforming. Now, here's what's interesting about this. If you look, that sun makes a beautiful trine, right, to Mars in its rulership in Aries in the 10th house. So Mars in rulership in the 10th house is very visible, very dynamic, and very powerful. And the sun trines that. And the sun rules that third house. So you would think that this would give a lot of extra power boost to the channel, and the channel be performing incredibly well, right? So for whatever the channel is intended to do, it is fulfilling its mission, and it is doing its purpose or serving its purpose to the nth degree, to powerful, large degree, but it's not visible, right? Because that's the whole thing with YouTube. Are you visible? Well, and here's what's interesting about that. So let's take a look at that. So Mars is in Aries in the 10th house. Our channel performing exactly the way it should be, and beyond expectation, superlatively in many ways, but it's not visible. Well, look at this. The 10th house is 26 Pisces. The 11th house is Taurus. Guess what? Mars in Aries is intercepted. That means that Mars in Aries placement is sandwiched or hidden inside the 10th house. It can't move. It can't be seen. It's literally sandwiched between houses, right? It's like being a short person in an elevator, and you're sandwiched between giants. Like, people kind of know you're there, but nobody can see you. They can hear you, but they can't see you. So Mars is intercepted in that 10th house, which shows something that's having difficulty being seen, and that makes all kinds of sense, because that's exactly what we're talking about in terms of the problem and what the measure of success is. This intercepted Mars in Aries, which trining that sun ruling the third house, indicates that the channel for what it's designed to do is performing remarkably well in terms of content and all the things it should be doing, but it's not visible. So this is possibly an algorithm issue. I spelled that wrong. Okay. It is possibly an algorithm issue. The other thing is, with that sun buried down there in that 6th house, this could be, well, this 6th house is details, right? Details. I'm not completely sure what that means with the sun in the 6th house. We'll look at that in more in a minute. All right, now, the other thing with Horary charts, it's very important that we ask the right questions. So should you, should I, should they, should questions are not good questions. A better question would have been, is there benefit to continuing the YouTube channel? Will the YouTube channel achieve the success I'm hoping for or expecting? These are better questions because they can give you very precise yes or no answers that are not value judgments, right? So should you do something that's based on a value system or an expectation, it doesn't tell you if the expectation is going to be met. So watch how you word your questions, because that will absolutely affect how you're able to interpret a chart. All right, now the other thing that we look at in a chart, so they always tell you to look at the rulers to see what they do, right? So for this, we want to look at the ruler of myself, right? And the ruler of the channel, and see if they make an aspect to each other. Well, yes and no, not really. They make a semi-sextile to each other, which is a very weak aspect. And the moon's not even applying, it's moving past that. So that's not really doing anything. The other thing that we would look for is what's called the end of the matter, or the final outcome, right? So we would look at the fourth house from the house ruler for the question. In this case, the third house is the channel, and we're going to go to the fourth house, or the end of the matter for it. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Sorry, over here. And that brings us to the sixth house, which is where the sun is. So the end of the matter, where the channel is concerned, is described by this sun, which rules third house, in the sixth, trining that intercepted Mars in Aries. So what does that tell us? Well, even without the interception, it should show, in theory, that the channel will be very successful, that success can and will be achieved. Maybe. So does the sun make any other aspects that we need to be concerned with, right? Does it make any applying aspects? Well, it does make, again, another weak aspect right here with Pluto, and of course applying to Saturn and Jupiter right there in that seventh house. But it's a weak aspect. It's not really giving us a lot to work with here. The moon, okay, which would be myself, the moon is at 2758, right? It's literally in the last degrees of its sign. So that in of itself, again, describes somebody who's at the end of the rope. And along with the 29 degrees in the third house, these are all perfect descriptions of where I'm kind of at right now with the channel. So that moon at 28 could be void, of course, maybe, but it's not, because it's actually making one final aspect before it changes signs to Jupiter and Saturn. So there is a final late game, 11th hour saving grace in here somewhere that we're not seeing yet. The moon conjunct Venus, and also this was interesting, Urania is right here, and Urania is the asteroid that rules astrologers. So Urania is at 23, Venus is at 26, and the moon is at 27. So with the moon with Venus, the moon would be describing the querent, which would be me, and the moon, and it's in Scorpio. So in theory, it should describe somebody who is a little bit raw, shoots from the hip, very straight shooter. In terms of their speech, very direct, maybe a little bit vulgar. Somebody who's not, light and fluffy, airy, fairy, cutesy, pie, fluffy bunny. And also is very intense, possibly very magnetic, very forceful, almost like a Svengali-esque kind of appeal or effect on people. I don't know. We can never really see ourselves, so I don't know if any of this holds true or not. So maybe, but that's what it's saying, and this is what it would say in somebody else's chart as well. With it conjunct Venus in Scorpio, we would look for sex appeal. So there should be something almost dark or sinister or a little intimidating as far as the sex appeal that kind of comes through. Again, I don't see it, but the chart's not over yet, so who knows? Maybe we'll be talking about maybe we'll be talking about all sorts of adult matters, as mature women before this channel is finished and finally buried. I don't know. Now, with the moon applying to Jupiter and Saturn in those last degrees, and again, this is an 11th hour Hail Mary here, it is possible because Jupiter rules that 10th house and Saturn rules that 7th, that at some point I may find or have pulled into my life to assist with the channel, because 7th house is the house of partnerships. I may be getting assistance to people who are more well versed and can act as mentors or teachers. That's that Jupiter Saturn, in terms of getting the channel moving in the right direction. It could also be that this Jupiter Saturn here pulling in that 7th house and the 10th, okay, and also the end of the matter 6th. It could also indicate possibly sponsorships. Ooh, wouldn't that be exciting? Maybe there's sponsorships that are coming through that will help keep the channel alive or get me the resources that I need to make the channel better. Now, I am not as well versed in Horary as I like to be, so this is all kind of new for me, so bear with me. And certainly if you have any experience with Horary, you're welcome to make comments or, post your own assessments of this down below in the comments section. I'm all ears, because remember, psychics can't tell their own fortunes, and astrologers can't really do their own Horaries. I mean, they can, but a second set of eyes is always helpful. So there's that, right? Now let me get rid of all these marks. The other thing that you can also look at is the 11th house, the hopes and aspirations of the querent for the question at hand. So obviously everybody has a hope and a goal for what they do, or they wouldn't do it, right? And for that, you're always going to look at the 11th house. So the question becomes, do we look at the 11th house of the 3rd, or do we look at the 11th house of the 1st, right? Is it the hope and aspiration of the channel or the querent? The answer is it's always the hopes and aspiration of the querent. The channel itself is not a living entity. It has no hopes and aspirations. It's a vehicle. The person driving the vehicle, right, is the person with the hopes and aspirations. So we would look for their 11th house, which here is going to be Taurus. So we have Uranus there in the 11th house. If you use the major planets, right? Uranus doesn't really make any aspects. It's just kind of there hanging out. Now, the ruler of the 11th house, which is what we're really concerned with, is Venus. Oh, and look, Venus is right there conjuncting the moon and Urania. So ultimately, we would expect that the hope and desire for this channel, the aspirations, are to have a popular moon and Venus, astrology, Urania, channel. What aspects do the moon and Venus make? They make sextiles to those Capricorn planets we were just looking at earlier, and Venus is making a separating trine to Neptune. It's separating, so we're not really going to use it. So all of these things go back to this configuration right here in the 7th house. And Capricorn, just like Scorpio, the thing to keep in mind with these two signs is that they are long-term signs. So patience and long-term visions, right? Things that take time to manifest are what we would expect with anything involving those planets. So with Capricorn has a lot to do with legacy. So we would expect this channel to become something of a legacy, something that's being left behind. And the thing with legacy is legacy in your life does not have to be like, Bill Gates or Jeff Bezos leaving, behind a legacy of, this foundation and that art museum and this medical study or whatever. Like, legacy literally is anything that you leave behind for the betterment of the people that are going to be around after you're gone. And it doesn't matter if it's a house, or a debt, or some old keepsake. All of those things are legacy because it's the things that we're leaving behind ultimately to benefit the people behind us. So with Capricorn, this heavy Capricorn Scorpio emphasis, we would expect that this channel is intended to act as a form of legacy for the operator of the vehicle, which would be me. And at the heart of it, that's really what this is about for me, is trying to leave behind a legacy. because one of the things I learned doing this chart, and if you've been watching the channel for a while, you know I've been at it for a minute. Many of the things that I learned, one, in the beginning, like everybody does, I try to mimic what other people who are successful doing it are doing, and I found that it was extremely difficult for me to mimic it. One, because it felt extremely uncomfortable. Two, it wasn't my style or my personality or the way I view astrology. And three, it just came off as false and stiff and disingenuous, right? And I found it, and I also learned that it takes time to find your voice. So when I finally found my voice, and I'm still evolving into it, everything made a lot more sense. So these days, for those of you who are new to the channel, if you go back the last couple of months and you look in the comments section, you will see that timing is a very big deal for me, and we're making notes of the dates to watch that we've mentioned in videos, and then in the comments we're keeping a report card of what happened that was of significance on those dates. So we've had some really interesting experiences with that. Now also, what's not on here is right here is a trans-Neptunian called Kronos, right there on the ascendant. And Kronos, the asteroid Kronos, is the timekeeper, which I thought was kind of interesting too, especially considering that's what our channel specifically is focusing on, is timekeeping, right? And keeping records of what happened and didn't happen, as our report card for predictions, during different months, and, the dates to watch, part of the video segment. So should we continue the YouTube channel? Should we not continue the YouTube channel? According to this, it's not giving us a yes or no answer, but what it is saying is that there will be a major transformation of this channel before this is over, because we've got a late degree moon with making a final aspect to those late degrees Capricorn planets. And remember, Saturn is in Capricorn, which is again extremely powerful because it is in rulership, right? So we have Mars in rulership. Oh, it's kind of dark. We have Mars in rulership, and we have Saturn in rulership. These are powerful positions for these planets. We have Sirius rising and Canopus rising. We have Regalis on the third house. There's a lot of things here that indicate that there may be something much bigger and better than what we see in terms of the original performance for this channel, but we won't see it until the very last stages of its development. So, and this may be it right now, because I'm definitely kind of at the end of my rope with all of this. All right, so do we stay? Do we go? What do we do? I don't know. How do you, with what you know about Horary, or what you can find, what do you see, and what have you observed, right, that may or may not have been covered here, or that's covered here and seems like there might be a different way to interpret it? Okay, so there's that. And on a final note, before we close this out, just wanted to give you guys a heads up, for those of you who've been subscribers to the channel that are watching this video, as we move forward into 2021 in the final incarnation of all that is this channel, I am going to be pivoting and shifting more into not only astrology as we've been doing. I'm also going to be including more, interweaving into it more about being a woman and being a descendant of the goddess and all of that stuff. So it will be good. It will be really, really good. And I hope you're hanging around so that we can have that conversation together. So that's it. If you noticed anything or you think of anything that I didn't cover here, please by all means let me know. Remember, I'm not wonderfully practiced at Horary. This is new for me, but I do enjoy it. So let's have that chat about this now. Okay, talk to you later. Bye.